Hello, welcome to a new video. Today I'm bringing you my November wrap up, and I think it was better than last month, which I'm very happy about. So in total I read 17 books. I did 6,670 pages and 64 hours of audiobooks. My average rating was 4.6 and I did have one DNF, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I had no 2 stars, no 3 stars, 6 4 stars, and then 11 5 stars. It was a very good month for quality. We'll get the DNF over and done with now. So I did DNF Nectar of the Wicked by Ella Fields. I'm going to be honest, before I read this, like when I got this in Fairy Loot's Romantasy box back in June, I did not think this would be my sort of thing, but I thought it would be like a standard average 3 star. It was okay, like Curse of Blood and Wolves was. However, I had to DNF very early on because it was making me feel so uncomfortable the way they meet, because that is not made clear in the blurb, and especially not the blurb that Fairy Loot included. And it just wasn't sitting right with me. So I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to quit while I'm ahead. And then I looked at the triggers and that sort of solidified, because there is a graphic scene, which is one of my triggers. I don't need a graphic scene like that. No, thank you. So I just DNF'd. So that was not a win. But now we'll get into the books that I did not DNF, and these were wins. So I started off the month with What If Mark Spector Was Host to Venom by Mike Chen. I was already looking forward to this because not only is it Marvel and What If, but it's written by Mike Chen, who wrote one of my favourite, actually no, I think it is my favourite Star Wars book, Brotherhood. It's an Anakin and Obi-Wan story, and I absolutely love that. And this was written so well. I really enjoyed how Mike Chen just managed to like write these characters so perfectly, and I was so invested in how this story was going to play out. I love the What If series, so like having this in book form is great. Next, I read Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I have been putting this book off for about 4 years because everyone loves this book. And I was like, well, what if I don't? You've hyped it up too much. This did not disappoint. This is a 5 star. I am genuinely shocked at how much I was just obsessed with this, to the point book 2 is on my December TBR. Like, what? I am so happy with how much I enjoyed this, and now I just hope I enjoy the rest of the series. I will also say at the end of the audiobook there is a song which is from this book, and it is so beautiful. I absolutely love it. Next up was This Is How You Lose the Time Warp by Amal El Motar and Max Gladstone. I borrowed this one off Ash. I have never really had any interest in this, but then I found out it was sapphic, so I was like, well, I guess I'm reading it. And Ash absolutely loved this when she read it, so she was more than happy for me to borrow her copy, so thank you. And do you know what? I have absolutely no idea what went on in this book, but it was so beautiful. I absolutely loved this. This was great. I would fully read a full book with these characters. Although if it was a full-size book, not like a short book, I would want to not be confused anymore. Because the confusion was fine for a, like, what, 198 page book, but that's where I draw the line. Next, I read Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young, which was my 12 books pick, like, that I picked in a vlog in October, because I'd forgot to do it for my October TBR. But it's fine, I read it. So this was Meg's pick, and I'm so glad that she picked this book. So this was a 5 star. I was hoping this wouldn't come out earlier in the year because I like to read authors' works in publication order, whether they're related or not, so that I can see their writing progress. And at the point when I did my 12 books for last year, I hadn't read Fable and Namesake, which I had. I have since read those and they were 4 stars. They were okay. But I think her adult fantasy is where my heart lays. I'm really excited to read I think it's called The Unmaking of June Farrow, which I don't think is connected to this. It could be, I'm not sure. But I do want to read that. I've got the audiobook ready. But I'm so happy I read this. Thank you, Meg, for making me read this, because I would have just kept putting it off after not absolutely loving Fable and Namesake. But yeah, it was really fun reading a book where the characters are in their 30s. Like, yes. So yeah, I finally read it and it was a win. And this is why I like my 12 books mug, because it's books that I own that I wouldn't necessarily gravitate to on my own, but I need my friends to push me to read them. Next, I read Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. I absolutely loved this book. It was a 5-star. I've seen a lot of like up and down reviews for this book. I know Lisa loved it. And I've seen a few other people love it, but then there were some people saying they were bored, they didn't like the character development. And to an extent, I can understand where they came from. It was a pretty slow start, but then it is the first book in a series, and I feel like it's got to build up. So whilst, yes, it was a slow start, it's also a slow burn romance, which the romance is, I would say, a side plot, and it's also setting up a series, because there's going to be at least, I don't know how many books there is going to be in the series. I don't know if it's going to be a duology, a trilogy, whatever, but there is at least 2 books in this series, so it's got to build it up ready for book 2. So, you know, stuff happens in this book, but it is a slower start because we have to meet the characters, we have to learn the magic. Like, I don't know what people want from a first book in a series, come on. But I absolutely loved it, and it was what I wanted. So, and also, again, another book where the character is turning 30. I want more adult books with characters in their 30s. Because, you know, I'm in my 30s. Like, a lot of adult fantasies, especially adult fantasy romances, the characters are in their, like, early to mid 20s. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, I don't dislike reading those stories, but it would be nice to have more that were closer to my age. Anyway, run over. Not really a run, you know what I mean. The next book I read was The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. The final book in the trilogy. And yeah, I know there is a 4th book that I will be reading, but as far as I'm concerned, this is a trilogy. The rest are just add-ons. This, to me, is the perfect end to a trilogy. I don't need more. And I'm actually scared what they're going to do, because I've seen a few people say the 4th book was unnecessary, and I'm like, oh, I'm worried. So we'll see. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the final book in the trilogy. I absolutely loved how it wrapped up. It's so clever, all the little twists and turns throughout this entire series. Just when you think you know what's going on, no, you don't. And I love how that's done. It's so clever and keeps you on your toes and keeps you invested. And that's the thing I love most about this series, has been that. Like, I started this series in August. I read the 2nd book. Was it August or September? It was either August or September I read the 1st book. I think it was August for Series TBR-a-thon. But I read the 1st book in August. I then read the 2nd book in September or October. And now I've read the 3rd book. I don't do things like that. I read the 1st book in a series and then get to the 2nd book 4 years later. So that shows it's a good series. Next up, I did my Buddy Reader Fool's Assassin by Robin Hobb with Kelly, and we're back to the Fitz story. This is the final trilogy, and we're back to Fitz. Now, I have historically hated the Fitz books. They've been 2s, 3s at best. This was a 4. And on CawPile, it shows as a 4.5. So it's not even scraping a 4. It's a solid 4-star. I'm shooketh. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the second POV that isn't Fitz, which I'm not going to say who because spoilers. But I really enjoyed how this was done, and I'm really excited to read the second book. Why am I excited for a Fitz book? What is happening? So yeah, I'm very happy with this. Still not enough to go out and buy them because I'm not going to buy this trilogy and not buy the others. If I'm ever going to physically own any of them, it's only going to be the Live Ship Traders, because those books are my favourites and I will reread those on their own. But yeah. What? Next, I read The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lind, and this was a 4-star. This was such a big win for me. So this was another Fairy Loot Romantasy book. I'm trying to read my Fairy Loot Romantasy books, friends. I'm trying. When I got this book in July, I did think I would like this. This sounded something up my street. But with the Fairy Loot Romantasy books, it's been very up and down for me. So I was like still a bit skeptical going into it. But I ended up really enjoying this, and I cannot wait for book 2. I think it's coming out next year, and I will be definitely trying to get the sequel if Fairy Loot do a matching sequel, because this is stunning. Like, don't get me wrong. Is this? Oh, this hasn't. Like, don't get me wrong. The original cover, which I can't remember what it looks like, but the original cover, I think it's that sort of thing. The original cover's stunning, don't get me wrong, but this is just beautiful, and I want a matching cover of the sequel. But yeah, so this is definitely one that I will continue the series and cannot wait for. The magic system was really interesting, and it was really interesting finding out about like the different creatures and things in this, and I just it was great. Next we have Phantom Hearts by Rosie Talbot and Sarah Maxwell. This is a YA graphic novel, and it's sapphic, and that was what sold me on it. So I will say this did get a 4-star. However, the more I think about it, it feels like a 3-star to me. But on CawPile, it come out as a 4-star, so I'm leaving CawPile as it is. But I wasn't a huge fan of all of the artwork in this. Like, especially when a character cries, it just looks weird, and it doesn't look right, and I don't like. And in this, it's literally, I mean, the blurb literally says, Marlia's life is upended when a student bus crash kills her fellow classmates. Marlia's dad was driving. So it's a sad story. There's death and heartache and grief. So you can imagine like that there is a lot of crying in it, and that's not good when you don't like the artwork when they cry. It just doesn't look right. I can't find an example, even though there is a lot. I don't know. Anyway, the story itself was good. I did like it. It was predictable in the sense of it's a YA. I expect it to be predictable, so that didn't bring down my enjoyment. But like, it was mostly the artwork, and I don't know. It felt a bit jumpy at points. I feel like there was stuff missing, and I feel like this story would have worked better as a story, not a graphic novel, or a slightly longer graphic novel, but it's fine. It's read, it's off my TBR. It went on my TBR and off my TBR in less than a month. Go me. Next few books was from my dinosaur vlog week, which I had so much fun with. So first up we have The Chosen by Taran Matharu. This was a 4-star. I am a little bit disappointed in the ending of this because I was fully ready for this to be a 5-star, and then the ending was just, it was a little bit of a disappointment in the sense of there is a reveal, which you're expecting this reveal to happen. You don't know what the reveal is going to be, but the reveal is coming, and then it happens, and I was just like, really? This is the direction you went with for this? And I was just a bit, there was a whole conversation between two characters at the end that I just was just so not interested in. Like it was like explaining the reveal, and I was just like, I don't care that this is the reveal. So I was a little bit disappointed in that, but I am looking forward to reading book 2, which I wanted to get to in November, but it wasn't happening, and it's probably not going to happen in December now, so that's a January job. But yeah, I did enjoy it. I loved it for the most part. It was just the ending that brought it down. Next up, we have the Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. This was another dark horse, a bit like Red Rising. I was not expecting to love this. I said in my vlog about how I got this arc sent to me unsolicited back in, I'm going to guess 2021, because it came out in March 2022. And I just never got round to it. And then because I was hearing not great reviews about it. So I just never got round to it. And it got unhauled, but my mum nicked it out of my unhaul, so it was in her bookcases. And then when I had the idea to do this dinosaur vlog, I was like, oh, I could read the Kaiju Preservation Society. I've seen some better reviews. And then I noticed that the audiobook is narrated by Wil Wheaton, and I was sold. And he definitely helped, but the actual book itself is great, and this ended up being a 5-star. Like, what? I really enjoyed this, to the point I think I might actually buy the series now, because I do want to continue this series because I'm really invested, and the banter in it is just great, which with Wil Wheaton as the narrator, you can imagine how that banter is delivered. Next, we have The Extension Trials Rebel by S.M. Wilson. I finished another series. This is a series I started last year, read book 1, and then this year I've read book 2 and 3, and I am so happy because this was a 5-star. This series has not disappointed. It was so cleverly done, and the politics in this, and then them having to figure out, try not to spoil, them trying to figure out how and if they can move to this other continent, which is swarming with dinosaurs, was just... And Storm Chaser is one of my favourite female characters because she's just great. And I would like to think that would be me in that situation with some dinosaurs. I don't think it would be. Maybe for the herbivores, definitely not for the carnivores. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I'm really glad I finished the series. Finishing up my dinosaur vlog, I read Dinosaur Sanctuary Volume 1 by Itaru Kinoshita, and I instantly want to buy the rest of this series that's out and binge it, because this was the cutest thing ever. It was a 5-star. I am so invested in this. She goes to work at a dinosaur sanctuary, and she has to care for the dinosaurs and help care for the dinosaurs. And there was just a thing I saw and I wanted to show you because it's very cute. Look at that. It's so cute. They're trying to help get money for the sanctuary to keep being able to care for the dinosaurs. And this new girl is like coming up with these ideas. And I'm just like... It's just so cute. I am obsessed and I absolutely loved it. I can't remember if I said, but it was a 5-star. Next up was another 12 books for 2024 pick, and it was Lisa's pick, and it was Amari and the Great Game by Bibi Alston. This ended up being 4-star. Now I don't know why I've been putting off reading this. I think it's just because I haven't been gravitating towards middle grade as much now. But I loved the first book when I read it in, I think, 2021, I think. So I don't know why I've been putting this off for so long, but I have. And then Lisa made me read it, and I'm very grateful for that because I really enjoyed this. It was a 4-star. It's hard for a middle grade to get 5 stars from me now. But this was a 4-star. I really enjoyed it. I am very intrigued to see where the third book's going to go. I'm going to try and get to it sooner rather than later, but we'll see. This is me. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love the friendships in this, and I hate most of the adults in this. Next up, I read Night Study by Maria V. Snyder, which is the second book in the third trilogy. And I finished it and then had to message Tori and be like, oh my God, to something that happens in this book. I'm very happy. This was a 5-star. I'm not shocked, because Shadow Study was a 5-star, and I've got a feeling this will be a 5-star trilogy again, which is great. I love being back with Yelena and Valak because they are my favourites, and I wasn't a huge fan of the way the first trilogy went, in a magical way, not a plot or character way. So I'm very happy to be back with these characters, and I'm enjoying their story more now, which is good, and it's very clever, and I love it. It's great. Next we have The Half King by Melissa Landers. Now, I was expecting to like this. I was not expecting to love it and it be a 5-star. I devoured this in like, I think less than 24 hours. It was so good. I cried. I need book 2 now. And I loved the characters. And I loved the magic. And the politics in this were really cleverly done as well. It's not too overpowering like some like fantasy worlds can be. I think it was the right amount of politics, but I really enjoyed it. And I'm just like, I want more. I want more. And then the final book I read in the month of November was House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. If you watched Gem's all-day sprints on the 30th of November, you'll know I read a lot of this in that day. To be exact, I can tell you how many pages of it I read. Now, this book is 801 pages. I read 608 of those on the 30th of November. I was determined it was going to happen. And I did it. I'm very happy. And I tabbed the absolute living hell out of this. There is so many tabs there. And a lot of them are pink. I used a lot of pink in this book. Pink is to do with the world and something else which I can't tell you. Yeah. Reading this is the third time I've read this book, but it's the first time I've read it since reading House of Flame and Shadow. And honestly, seeing the things she had started putting into place in this book, genius. It was amazing. I loved my reread of this. This is my favourite reread so far of this, because I've since read the third book and know what happens after this. But there was one thing that caught me off guard, because for some reason I thought it happened in the third book. So when it happened, even though I know the outcome, I was fully sobbing. So yeah, that was fun. But yeah, my brain is a little fried today because of how much of this I read yesterday, but it's fine. It's fine. But that was my November wrap up. So I was having a little think, because the way I usually do my favourite books is I go by the highest rating on CawPile, like the 9 point whatever. Red Rising, The Half King and The Final Gambit all got 9.71. But then I was thinking individually about how each one of those books made me feel. And overall, I do think Red Rising is my actual favourite out of those three, because I think it was just how invested I was. Like, I read this one very quickly. I binged The Final Gambit. But I think overall, this one, especially with these two both being the first in a series, I think this one definitely gripped me more. So this one has to be my favourite book of the month. But the other two I feel like should get honorary mentions in my yearly favourites. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite book you read in November was. But I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.